I want to take you back to the very beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. It was one of those gut-wrenching moments every founder dreads. I was staring at a mountain of unsold inventory, the embodiment of a product nobody wanted. This wasn't just a minor setback. This was a full-blown crisis that threatened to derail everything I had worked for. It was so bad that I was seriously questioning whether I had what it takes to succeed in the business world. As I navigated through this rough patch, I realized there were moments I thought it was all over. Moments when my business was on the brink, thanks to some truly boneheaded decisions. But here's the silver lining. I made it through. And today I want to share these experiences with you. I want to lay it all out on the table. The missteps, the mistakes, and most importantly, the invaluable lessons I learned. Because if you're an aspiring entrepreneur or just someone trying to navigate the choppy waters of building something new, you've probably felt that fear. Maybe you're feeling it right now. So if you can relate to even a fraction of what I'm about to tell you, know this: you're not alone. And more importantly, there's a way through the darkness, so buckle up. Grab a cup of coffee because we're about to dive deep into the biggest business blunders I've ever made. The first massive mistake that almost sunk my business was ignoring customer feedback. In the exhilarating world of startups and innovation, it's easy to fall into the trap of building products or services in a vacuum and assuming we know exactly what our customers want. We craft what we think is the perfect solution only to be met with a reality check when customers don't share our enthusiasm. This lack of understanding can lead to missed opportunities, wasted resources, and ultimately a disconnect from the very people we're trying to serve. Let me walk you through a personal experience that really drove this point home for me. Early on in my entrepreneurial journey, I had an idea for a product that I was convinced was going to be a game changer. I poured my heart and soul into it, investing time, money, and an unwavering belief in its potential. But when I launched the product to the market, it was met with a lukewarm reception. Customers didn't quite understand its value, and it failed to gain traction. Now, instead of listening to the feedback and iterating quickly, I made the mistake of pushing forward with my original vision. I tried to convince myself that they just didn't understand how great the product was and that with a little more effort, I could turn things around. But as we all know, trying to fit a round peg in a square hole never works. And sure enough, the product continued to struggle. Looking back, I realized that I had ignored crucial feedback loops. I didn't take the time to truly understand why customers didn't connect with the product. Instead, I pressed on, convinced that my idea was sound. This led to a significant waste of resources and time, which could have been channeled into developing solutions that actually met the market's needs. Eventually, I did listen to the feedback, but by then, it was too late. The opportunity had passed, and I had to start all over again. This experience was a harsh but necessary lesson. From that point on, I made sure to implement robust feedback loops into every aspect of my business. I learned to listen intently to what customers were saying, not just with their wallets, but also through their words and their actions. This meant continuous conversations, surveys, and a keen eye on market trends. It meant adapting quickly and not being afraid to change course. Because in the dynamic world of business, staying still is often the riskiest move of all. And that's a lesson I've carried with me through every venture since. Remember, success doesn't come from ignoring the market. It comes from understanding it deeply and being willing to evolve with it. But the trouble was, I wasn't always good at this, and this next mistake almost cost me everything. The second massive mistake I made that almost took my business down was the peril of uncontrolled spending. In the exciting journey of entrepreneurship, especially when you're experiencing rapid growth, it's easy to get caught up in the moment and make some pretty penny-miserly mistakes. The trouble was, I wasn't always good at this, and this next mistake almost cost me everything. It's the natural human instinct to want to reward yourself for hitting milestones, to celebrate successes, both big and small. But in business, it's crucial to keep a level head, especially when your company's financial health is on the line. Here's where I went off track. In the exhilarating ride of scaling my business, I fell into the trap of spending excessively, believing that my success was limitless. Looking back, I realized I made some costly choices that almost derailed everything I'd worked so hard to build. One of the most glaring issues was office space. As the business grew, I wanted to provide more space for my team and myself. But instead of opting for a practical, cost-effective solution, I went for luxury office space in prime locations. While it looked impressive on paper and made me feel like a big-time success, it was a drain on resources that didn't yield a proportional return on investment. Then there's the issue of high-end equipment and technology. I justified it to myself as an investment in progress. But the truth was, I wanted the best gadgets and tools that I saw other successful companies using. Again, while these tools were undoubtedly useful, the lavish spending didn't align with our core business needs and ate into our operational budget without providing a clear path to profitability. The worst part was, I didn't have a clear strategy for managing these expenses. I wasn't meticulously tracking where every dollar was going, nor was I ensuring that each expenditure aligned with our financial goals. This lack of financial discipline put my business at risk and jeopardized the very success I was striving for. What I needed was a complete shift in mindset. I had to cultivate a culture of fiscal responsibility, one that celebrated smart, strategic spending over extravagant gestures. This meant making tough decisions, cutting back on non-essentials, and reinvesting in areas that directly contributed to our bottom line. It also meant adopting a long-term perspective. Instead of viewing expenses as momentary comforts, I started seeing them as investments in the future of the company. Looking back, I can confidently say that this was a pivotal turning point for me as an entrepreneur. It was through this experience that I honed my financial acumen, which has been instrumental in steering my subsequent ventures towards success. The key takeaway here is that while it's important to celebrate milestones, it's even more vital to do so responsibly. Every dollar spent should be a step towards your financial goals, no matter how small that step may seem. Remember, sustainable success isn't built on extravagance, but on the solid foundation of financial prudence. However, even with this newfound financial wisdom, I was still susceptible to another critical mistake, one that almost made me lose everything. And before we explore that, let me ask you something. How many of you have jumped on the bandwagon of a trend only to find it fizzling out before you knew it? Well, you're not alone. I've been there too. And let me tell you, it's not a fun place to be. So here's the story. The third major mistake I made that nearly crippled my business was chasing trends. Now, in the dynamic world of business, staying ahead of the curve is essential. But it's a fine line between innovation and chasing fleeting trends. Allow me to illustrate this with a significant misstep I took early in my career. You see, I had this inherent drive to be at the forefront of everything new and exciting. When I saw the rise of AI tools, I dove headfirst, pouring substantial resources into mastering them, believing they were the golden ticket to the next big thing. Similarly, when niche crypto projects started making waves, I jumped in headfirst, convinced I was on the cusp of the next financial revolution, and who could blame me? After all, being associated with the next big thing can mean massive returns. It can open doors to lucrative opportunities and position you at the cutting edge of your industry. But here's the harsh reality. Not every trend turns into a gold mine. And that's where I went wrong. I threw caution to the wind, pouring time, money, and energy into trends without a solid understanding of their longevity or genuine passion for the ventures themselves. And the consequences were significant. The AI tools I invested in ended up being just a passing phase within a larger trend, leaving me with resources drained and efforts wasted. Likewise, my foray into niche crypto projects proved to be a turbulent ride. The emotional toll of watching your investment swing wildly in value is something I wouldn't wish on anyone. This cycle repeated itself, draining my resources and disheartening me with each fleeting trend I chased. But the biggest hit was to my confidence. Each failed venture chipped away at my self-belief, making me question my judgment and my ability to succeed. Looking back, I realized I had strayed away from my core values and taken my eye off the ball. What I needed was a shift in perspective, a return to my roots, if you will. I had to remember that true success came not from chasing the latest and greatest, but from pursuing ventures that I was genuinely passionate about and that had solid foundations. So what's the takeaway here? Trends are like ocean tides, ebbing and flowing, and knowing when to jump in and when to stay on the shore is key. Do your research, Follow your passions and always ensure your ventures are built on solid ground. Your business and your peace of mind will thank you for it. In the end, these mistakes, while painful, were the stepping stones to my success. They taught me valuable lessons about myself, about my business, and about the world around me, and I wouldn't trade them for anything. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. Every successful entrepreneur has a graveyard of failed ideas and ventures. It's not about avoiding failure. It's about learning from it, adapting, and coming back stronger. If you found this story helpful, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing. If you have your own stories of epic fails or comebacks, we'd love to hear them in the comments below. Until next time, keep hustling, keep failing forward, and remember, even in the darkest of times, the tide can turn.